All right, welcome to Wednesday Night Slides number 84. Let me get my title slide going here. I got a bazillion buttons I got to push first to get this show on the road here. Oops, of course, that isn't going to work. I got to do this instead. Um, I'm gonna share the screen first, then start the slideshow, just the way Zoom wants to work. Okay. And now, if I start the slideshow, you should all be seeing the title slide.
We are indeed.
And excellent. All right. Welcome again to Wednesday night slides number 84. As usual, if you got any questions or comments, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question or make the comment. You're welcome to play along, as they say. We're going to start off tonight with something I did just a few hours ago. I went into Philadelphia to the Woodland shop. That is SEPTA's heavy repair shop. That maintains all of the streetcars on the city division, as well as the trolleys on the Red Arrow division that go to Sharon Hill and Media. Here is one of their Kawasaki cars from the city division with their PCC rebuild banner hanging over it. That is not a PCC. That is a Kawasaki car. And they're still kind of festive there. They still got their Christmas tree up in the shop. This is kind of cool. They're getting some Siemens light rail cars to replace all the Kawasaki's and eventually the PCCs. And they got a mock-up booth set up made out of just wood and cardboard of what the cab is going to be like on the Siemens cars. So I got to take a peek inside there. The display in front of the chair there, that is just a piece of paper with a display printed out on it, taped down to the console there. And there's a rail fan hanging out, ready to get a photo as soon as it starts to move. He's got about a 10-year wait, though. That's actually Bill Monahan, the former, now retired SEPTA streetcar operator. And outside of the cab, they have a comment box that the employees can put in comments. I'd be kind of curious to see what kind of comments they had inside there. So heading back to the shop, the wheel shop. Looking down, we see one of the Red Arrow division cars. The Red Arrow cars are a little bit longer than the city cars, a little bit heavier. And the city cars just have doors on one side, one at the front, one in the center. Whereas the Red Arrow cars are double-ended and have doors on both sides, on both ends. Now, the real reason, though, I was up at Woodland, though, was I wanted to check up on one of their coolest projects they have going on. They have two PCCs undergoing rebuild for the Route 15, which is now the G line. Anyhow, the first one they're working on is going to be painted in what we call the Gulf oil scheme. That's what the Philly trolley fans call this, because the colors are the same as Gulf oil, the orange with the blue and white. Very cool. It's got the old style SEPTA meatball on the nose. The interior is still kind of empty. Now, this car here, they stopped working on it temporarily because there's a second PCC and they want to get out first. And that's this one here. Its paint scheme is based on the bicentennial scheme some of the trolleys wore back in 1976. I imagine it'll be updated a little bit to reflect the semi-quincentennial. But they're hoping to get this one out before July. After I was done at Woodland, I decided to drive home via Woodland Avenue. And I stopped at 60th Street. The weather wasn't sun was trying to come out. The sun never did come out, though. Here we have a Route 11 car, which is now the T4. They've changed all their designations. Unusual is that this car is actually heading towards Center City, but it's got the Derby Transit Center in the destination sign, which is the opposite end of the line. And we have an outbound car here coming up Woodland Avenue. And this one doesn't have the T4 in it. It has the old Route 11 designation, but it also has the proper direction heading for Derby. And here's one that's actually got the T4 and is that's going the wrong. That's going to Derby. That's going the right direction. Yeah. And then one more. This little hump here in the road. That's where the where Woodland Avenue and the streetcar tracks go over CSX's Philadelphia subdivision. So that was my adventure today. We're going to now go back to April 2002 and March 2003 for a couple of fan trips that were operated on the Kentucky and Tennessee Railroad, sponsored by the Southern Appalachia Railway Museum. The Kentucky and Tennessee was a coal hauler, but it expanded into a tourist hauler known as the Big South Fork Scenic. But one of their locomotives still said Kentucky and Tennessee on it, one of their Alco S-2s. And the charter featured the 102 with the K and T lettering. Here we are in Stearns, Kentucky. About halfway out the line that's usable is the old coal mining town of Barthel, which is now cabins. You can rent. Yeah, you can rent. I'm trying to check comments here. I can't get to them. So here we are going through Barthel. And then we went on the line and did some shots. Here we are emerging from the one tunnel on the line. Coming off the main line is a 1 mile branch into the Blue Heron mine. The caboose is pretty much at the interchange. The train is on the Blue Heron branch going in. The Blue Heron mine has been preserved. The breaker there, it's now I think it's a state park. One of the old little mining Lokis that went into the mine. This is the view from inside the coal tipple, looking down at the visitor center. And what's pretty cool about this place is they actually have former Southern Railway hopper cars they've placed underneath the tipple on display there. Really neat. So after visiting Blue Heron, we went back out and did some more photo run-bys with that little freight train.
Steve, was that engine from out west originally?
Uh, this one, yes, this is the former Rio Grande locomotive they have.
That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, this locomotive started life as a Rio Grande unit. Back at Barthel, and the tunnel. The railroad was built by the Stearns Coal and Lumber Company, and here's their office in Stearns. Another view. We've got a few more views here that are out of sequence, but going back in the Blue Heron. And once again, back at the Blue Heron mine. And Barthel again. and inside the tunnel. That was the 2002 trip. The 2003 trip is up next. These trips are organized by Bart Jennings. So that's Bart there on the steps of the general store. And so for the weekend, we changed the name of Barthel to Bart Hell. And on the 2003 trip, we actually stayed in Barthel. The group rented all the sleeping accommodations there, and we stayed there. And we're there on Friday night, and beautiful night for being in March. Just a nice warm night down there. And we were pondering what to do, and Bart suggested driving over to Blue Heron and doing night photos. So we decided, okay, that sounds like a good idea. So we're packing up our gear, ready to go over there. Then out of the darkness, a caboose pops out on the railroad, and train comes to a stop, totally unexpected. And the crew gets off. They said, "Yeah, we decided to come down here and see what you all were up to tonight." And we said, "Well, we're just ready to go over to Blue Heron and get some night photos." And they said, "Well, you want us to drive?" And we're like, "Sure." So we piled onto the train and went down to Blue Heron for some night shots. There's those Southern Hopper cars I told you about. After this gorgeous, gorgeous night, we got the next morning and it was pouring rain and damp and nasty. So we, to kill time till the rain stopped, we went up to Stearns and did a shop tour. Like a lot of tourist railroads, they have a steam locomotive that they're working on, in quotes. Pretty well disassembled there. And this is the interchange, come up to the interchange in Stearns with the former Southern Railway main line, the rat hole. And we're back at Barthel here. And the weather is improving. And on our way back into Blue Heron. For a short stretch around Barthel, it hugs the bank of the Big South Fork River. And it's a real narrow passage. A lot of narrow cuts, neat rock formations. And working our way back into Stearns. Then back to Barthel for the where we were camping out. Did some night photos down there. And that wrapped up our second trip on the Kentucky and Tennessee. Got just a couple of current events to show. I didn't do a whole lot this month. A couple of current events. On Valentine's Day, I chased Reading Northern 2102, the big X Reading 484. Was running a winter trip. I had knocked off pretty much all of the shots available between North Reading and Port Clinton. And only shots that were left were shots where everybody goes. So I said, well, I'll just bite the bullet, fight the crowds, and do some of these shots where everybody is and deal with the traffic. Normally, I have a plan set up where I can avoid the worst of the traffic. So I went to Port Clinton, and the train makes a station stop here to load passengers. That's the Reading Northern's diesel shop on the right-hand side. And yeah, the departure was pretty spectacular. It really works coming out of here. It's pulling like 15, 16, 17 cars unassisted. It's pretty cool. I then went up to just below Tamaqua, a place called Zahner's. Did a shot there. But then from here, going through Tamaqua, traffic was just a killer. Just took forever to get through Tamaqua. So I didn't get ahead of it again until almost Jim Thorpe at a place called Nesquehoning. And here we see the train coming through Nesquehoning with all the rail fans perched on the snowbanks. The platform that's in the steam there to the right of the steam locomotive, that's the Reading Northern's brand new Nesquehoning train station. They now operate some trips out of there. So it goes into Jim Thorpe. Jim Thorpe's a zoo. I don't ever go into Jim Thorpe. Had 3.5 hours to spend there. I wasn't going to do that. So I just worked my way back and took some photos here and there. Here's some Reading Northern freight power in Tamaqua. And then when I was in Port Clinton, I noticed that R&N had two of their specially painted units on display. Here is their 40th anniversary unit, 1983. Back when they first started out, they were the Blue Mountain in Reading, and they painted their engines purple. So here's their throwback purple locomotive. And then, like a lot of other railroads, they're getting into the semi-quincentennial thing and painting patriotic themed locomotives. And then a few nights ago, I noticed that a local tourist railroad, the Colebrookdale Railroad over in Boyertown, Pennsylvania, they have a former Canadian National 462 Pacific that they're going to eventually restore. But they towed it out of storage down near Pottstown, PA, and parked it in front of their depot in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. And so I contacted the railroad and asked if they would mind if I did a few things with their locomotive at night. They said, sure, no problem. So here we are in Boyertown. The railroad is very fantasy based, Harry Potter-ish. So here's their station, kind of an interesting station. But with the railroad's permission, we used smoke sticks to add some steam to the shots. And we also swapped out the headlight bulb for a battery powered, always on light bulb. And then the bulk of this show is going to be a trip I took down to Mississippi in January and February of 2016. Me and my brother Bruce headed down for a fan trip on the Grenada Railway out of Batesville, Mississippi. So we headed out in late January from New Jersey. Our first stop was in Boyce, Virginia. Got a southbound Norfolk Southern train on the Shenandoah line. Then near Elliston, Virginia, we caught up with a train led by Norfolk Southern's Savannah and Atlanta Heritage Unit. So we chased that and got it again at Montgomery Tunnel. Then we wrapped up that first day on the state line between Virginia and Tennessee in Bristol, a good place to live. Did some night shots of trains going across State Street. State line is right in the middle of the street here. It turned to be a surprisingly busy night for freight. Did pretty well here. And we finished off with a train going by the Bristol Depot. It was actually the geometry train. You can see the second unit there is painted maroon. That's Norfolk Southern's brick that assists the geometry train. Had I known that was what it was, I would probably have changed the angle a little bit. It kind of surprised me that that's what it was. Next morning, we're in Nashville to shoot the Music City Star commuter service, which has since been rebranded as WeGo, W-E-G-O. But we stayed for a few trains in the morning rush hour. Going by the Cumberland River, that's the Tennessee Titans stadium over on the right-hand side here. Then it was over to Memphis for some barbecue. And then we headed down to Batesville, Mississippi for the big show, which was going to be a fan trip using Iowa Pacific's Illinois Central painted consist to recreate a Illinois Central streamliner. So here we are in Batesville. But decided to change the identity of the locomotive. Instead of the Central of Georgia, we're changing it here into Illinois Central 4035 for the fan trip. That's Casey Cavanaugh from Norfolk Southern putting the number board up on the locomotive. Meanwhile, Terry Redeker, who passed away last year, much too young. Terry was a great guy. Terry is putting the Illinois Central over the Central of Georgia Diamond there. So we've gone from Central of Georgia to Illinois Central, and we're ready to go. This is the day before the trip, actually. But we had to go out and have some fun anyhow. So off we went to do some photos with our IC streamliner. Went down to a bridge over the Tallahatchie River. Did not see Billy Joe McAllister, however. This is a good looking train, though. It really was. Yes. Kevin points out that Casey Thomas, and at the time he was Norfolk Southern's company photographer. And then we got our drones out and flew some drones, got some drone shots. This was the first time I ever flew my drone out over water. As you can see, I have the shots. That means the drone did come back and did not land in the water. And then we did some spectacular night photos of the train. The units ran around the consist, and we got back into Batesville and did the other end of the E units with the observation car. So here we have Iowa Pacific 518. That was the second E unit in the consist. Iowa Pacific 518 going by an observation car carrying a City of New Orleans drumhead on it. And then a quick number change later, We went from Iowa Pacific 518 to Central of Georgia 812. Next morning, we headed south out of Batesville. This line is historically an Illinois Central line. Illinois Central through this part of Mississippi had two lines that were parallel but separated by several miles. One line was the passenger main for the most part, hot freight trains. Other line was mostly your slower freights. Eventually, IC wanted to get rid of one of the two lines because it was redundant. But they were required by Amtrak to maintain the passenger line until 1995. Once that agreement expired, they moved the city of New Orleans off the passenger line over to the freight line and then spun off the passenger line to a short line operator. But what that meant was our IC streamliner here is actually on the original IC passenger main line. The city of New Orleans, through this part of Mississippi, does not go over the IC passenger route. Back to the air for some drone shots. And then we got to Oakland, Mississippi, I believe this is. And did a photo stop here. And then I thought this would look kind of cool in black and white. And then our trip got to Grenada. That's where it turned back. Head back to Batesville. So here we are with Iowa Pacific 518 leading the train back. And we got back to Batesville. That wrapped up that trip, the excursion part. That night, I shot the city of New Orleans, but I don't remember where I shot it. I got to figure this out. My brother might have it in his notes. Next morning, though, we got up. We headed over to Vicksburg, Mississippi, where this huge bridge crosses the Mississippi River, used by Norfolk Southern and Kansas City Southern at the time. Of course, our first train has Union Pacific power on it. Second train is KCS power, but has a gray locomotive leading one of their really nice Southern Bell painted locomotives. Then the third train was the winner. That had two bells on the point. This bridge was at one time both rail and highway. You can see the highway ramp going down there to the side. The interstate is now just off to the left. You can see the shadow of the interstate bridge in the water there. And this is actually from a rest area on the interstate. It's got benches and restrooms and great place to just drop anchor and watch trains. This train here we chased. He's coming into Vicksburg. And then Vicksburg has two tunnels. Here's that westbound coming out of one of the tunnels, which is actually looks more like a man-made tunnel than anything else. But it crossed the river, and the track speed over the river is only 10 miles an hour for the railroad. So we were easily able to get ahead of it And this is in Delta, Louisiana. And then Tallulah, Louisiana. We also spent time trying to find Southern shortline railroads. Um, Southern short lines have a reputation of being really quaint and cool and neat. Uh, so we poked around looking for some. We started off with, I think this is the Delta Southern in Louisiana. You can see it's quaint. But its power was just a couple of LTEX leasers. From there, it was back into Vicksburg, and that evening we shot a train with 3 bells coming out of the tunnel. Then headed over to Bovina, Mississippi. Nice concrete arch bridge. And did night shots there. KCS Power, Norfolk Southern. Another KCS train going away, but fortunately it had a distributed power unit on the back that we were able to get. This is, I think, the Vicksburg Southern. Once again, just a couple of fleet locomotives, nothing uniquely painted for the railroad. Southern short lines are beginning to lose their charm as they get swallowed up by conglomerates and who keep sending ratty engines to them. Anyhow, here was the city of New Orleans going through Yazoo City, Mississippi. Then we followed the Grenada Railway a bit, picked up a couple of Illinois Central depots, one in Durant, Mississippi, and one in West Mississippi. And then ran into a Grenada freight coming down. Once again, with power that isn't very unique. Generic paint jobs. Over in Holly Springs, Mississippi, we caught up with the Mississippi Central. Nicely restored, huge depot. But once again, the power is just a large dipped CF7. This locomotive at least says Mississippi Central on the side of it. And another view of the depot. We're in Corinth, Mississippi here, I believe. Another leased locomotive, this NW2. And that railroad interchanged with BNSF there. This railroad is part of Pioneer Lines, and Pioneer Lines has, back when they were painting power, they painted it in this black with yellow stripe scheme for all the railroads. This is I think a Peoria and Pekin Union locomotive in Mississippi. From there, it was over to Amory, Mississippi. That's the engine house of one of the most legendary Southern short lines, the Mississippian Railway. Unfortunately, they were not running, but their power was inside, and we were able to get inside and take a look at it. And the Redmont Railway with a CF7 and a water tank. From there, we headed over towards Huntsville. Somewhere between Amory and Huntsville, we found this CSX freight. I haven't pinned down the location on this yet. I got to figure it out. But over in Huntsville, what caught our eye almost right away was at the Space Center. They got an upright Saturn V rocket. If you've never seen an upright Saturn V rocket, it's immense. All of the Saturn V's on display, other than this one, are displayed horizontally. This is the only upright Saturn V on display. Now, there is a caveat. This is not an actual Saturn V rocket. It is a 1-to-1 ratio model of a Saturn V rocket, but it gets the point across. Also at the Space Center is a mock-up, full-size mock-up of a space shuttle. And then we did some night photos on the short line in town, the Huntsville and Madison County. Really a spiffy paint scheme. That orange and black really pops well. Heading back up through Alabama, we got to Bridgeport. This is not a Yadkin Valley locomotive. The sublettering on it under the cab window there is for the Sequatchie Railroad, which operates out of Bridgeport. They had a few locomotives laying around, including this one here. The Walking Horse and Eastern is what's lettered for. And I have no idea what this one here is lettered for. Bridgeport, though, is where CSX crosses over the Tennessee River. Actually, it's shared trackage. Both Norfolk Southern and CSX use this track. Anything coming out of Chattanooga going west or south comes through here on either railroad. Several years ago, CSX replaced the bridge and donated the original bridge to the town. So we're out on the original bridge here, which is now the linear park, shooting trains on the new bridge. The Bridgeport Depot is now a museum. And here comes a train the other direction, heading towards Chattanooga. If you look carefully off to the right of the depot, you'll see one of those units that Sequatchie Valley has. This train here we chased, it goes out and crosses this neat bridge over the interstate and climbs the mountain right where Alabama, Georgia, and Tennessee all come together. And up on the mountain, there's a tunnel they bypassed. The tunnel is still there. Trains go around it. And then we worked our way back. It's getting time to head for home. We had to be home like this night. And we're in, south of Chattanooga at 2 in the afternoon. But we had to take one final look. So we worked our way back towards Bridgeport and picked up this CSX train and got it crossing this neat bridge. And then we went chasing after it towards Chattanooga. This may or may not have been successful. I was trying to find a spot to pull over and get it. The railroad just scrapes Georgia for like 2 miles. And I wanted to get the train in Georgia just to add a state to the trip. But I'm not entirely sure this is in Georgia. It might still be in Alabama, or it might be in Tennessee. It all squiggles around through there. But from here, we had a 13-hour drive home, and we hit the road and drove home, and that was it. And that wraps up this week's show. Next month, we're going to be doing the show on March 18th. That's a week early, because if things work out right, on March 25th, about this time, I will be at Big Jim's drive-thru in the Dalles, Oregon, enjoying a gorge burger after a day of chasing trains through the Columbia River Gorge on my way to Winter Rail. That wraps things up, folks. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm going to sign off for YouTube here now and then open it up to questions and comments and stuff. Let me check the chat here.